Our last speaker tonight will be the department's less lethal use of force expert, Officer Daniel Lavelle from our tactical unit. He is experienced in other less lethal devices and will discuss a less lethal weapon of choice, which is similar to the SL6 that is used by the crisis intervention team in Memphis PD. Officer Lavelle.
Good evening. Take this up for you soon. Empty. All right. Put it up here. My name is Officer Dan Lavelle. I'm a member of the tactical unit in the San Francisco Police Department. I've been with the police department for over 17 years. I am currently a post-certified instructor in numerous subject matters, including firearms, less lethal munitions, diversionary devices, crowd control, use of force, numerous different subject matters that I've been trained in over the years. I was asked to come tonight to talk about this 40mm multi-launcher which the tactical unit currently deploys with, as it would have possibly been used in the scenario that was displayed earlier tonight. I've been through many courses in less lethal use of force instruction, and there's no magic tool for every circumstance. There's no miracle pill when it comes to less lethal force options. In the scenario that we saw earlier tonight, you had two officers who were responding as regular patrol officers with the tools that they had on their person. They didn't have the luxury of having additional tools, which you can obviously see are extremely bulky and cumbersome and not readily deployable. They're able to be carried in the vehicles, in the trunks of vehicles, but as you can see, you have to take it out of a carrying case. It takes time. You're not going to respond to a domestic disturbance with such a less lethal weapon. In that particular scenario, one of the officers did have a taser, which is a nice option to have because you can carry it on your person and it's readily available in an extremely dynamic situation. This is an option that we have, and like I said, it's not necessarily the miracle pill for less lethal munitions. In that particular scenario, when officers respond to calls in San Francisco, they end up inside of buildings and structures. When you're inside of a building and structures, you're in close proximity to the people in which you are dealing with. These particular munitions come out at approximately 250 feet per second, and they deploy a rubber baton, which this is what it looks like, similar, and this is what the baton looks like when it exits the weapon, striking the subject at approximately 250 feet per second, depending on the distance from which they make the impact. Obviously, the farther away, the less of an impact that they have. In that particular scenario, they would have been within 7 to 10 feet of the subject, which is an extremely close proximity, and if they hit somebody in what we classify as a non-target area, head, neck, throat, spine, groin, kidneys, it could cause blunt trauma and possibly be fatal. The taser, on the other hand, is an electric current that is considered a less level of force than this. And in all reality, this particular delivery system is more effective in a crowd control situation, which was what the tactical company more often than not deploys it in. Basically, I was brought here to answer any questions if you had it, or if there's any other information you need regarding the less lethal options that we have. These are not deployed out by regular patrol officers. They're deployed through the Special Weapons and Tactics Unit. We deal with crowd control situations, critical incidents, high-risk search warrants, and the level of training that we get in these far exceeds the rest of the department at large, due to the expense, obviously, and the time that it takes to train us in these type of munitions and to be proficient with them. So if there's any questions anybody has, I'd be willing to answer them.
Well, so what you're saying, Officer Lavelle, is that weapon that we've heard about, the SL6, is probably not a good weapon for in close situations like we had with the domestic violence call scenario this evening.
What I'm saying is it could be used, but it's not a preferred weapon for that particular type of circumstance.
And why is it not preferred?
Because the capability of causing blunt trauma is extremely great. This type of a weapon, we usually deploy it more out in an open space type of situation as opposed to a close quarters type of incident.
Commissioner Hammer?
I'll be very brief. Thank you, Officer Ball, for coming tonight. This is the same round. When we were in Los Angeles, or maybe it's a different round, is it?
It's a different company. That's the DefTech version of this. The San Francisco contracts with CTS, Combined Tactical Systems. But yes, we did when we initially started the program with the 40-millimeter launching systems. We were using DefTech.
I don't want to ask many questions because if this resolution or a version that passes tonight, some of our colleagues will go in depth in this along with the department, come back with a fuller report. But having worked in and around law enforcement for 25 years, I had never heard of this. I heard a lot about tasers. When we were with Chief Down in Los Angeles just a couple of weeks ago, Commissioner Chan and I, we had heard about it from the Memphis Police Department. They got rid of tasers because they weren't effective, they said, and so they replaced it with this weapon. And we saw it fired on the rooftop of the Los Angeles Police Department, and I was blown away by how fast and hard it was.
That particular round actually comes out at 300 feet per second, whereas this only comes out at 250 feet per second. They probably create the same type of kinetic energy because the gram weight of this is 60 grams, and I'm assuming, because I know that is a little bit lighter. If you want, I could pass this around.
Sure, please.
You can see that particular round is a little bit heavier. That's why Def Technology has a faster, a hotter charge in it, because it's creating the same kind of kinetic energy. It's just that it's a little bit lighter, so they have to have it coming out a little faster.
And again, I don't want to go into all the details tonight because that's where hopefully some of our colleagues could do and then come back to us and tell us what's best, and that's what I'll vote for. But one of the things that intrigued me about this particular weapon, and that the SWAT expert in Los Angeles told us, is it's effective up to 100 feet. Is that correct? Because it's a
approximately 30 yards is the optimal distance, up to 30 yards. You can get it to about 35. When we train in a tactical company, we train up to about 20 yards with this particular one, and then we have a single-shot version of it where we have an optic on it that we use up to 25 yards because it's extremely precise.
And the tasers, on the other hand, one of the downsides is you have to get within 20 feet or so of the suspect, correct? Whereas this, you might be 10 or 20 yards away, depending on the situation.
That's the nice thing about it, because if you're in close proximity, it's a lot more compact and easier to manipulate than this big bulky.
So depending on the situation, advantages of some and disadvantages, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And I believe, if I heard you correctly, the officers don't carry this particular weapon, right? It's in the car, is that correct?
The only officers that are carrying this particular weapon are members of the SWAT teams, 4 SWAT teams in San Francisco.
So other officers don't have this available to them?
They do not.
Memphis of you.
Any other questions?
I just want to say thank you for giving us this demonstration and showing us this weapon, because we were curious about it ever since we heard from the Memphis folks, because they were making a decision between tasers and the SL6 is their version of this weapon.
Yeah, they're all made by the same manufacturer. Well, ours is Penn Arms, but they contract out with other agencies.
And the reason they chose this, something like this weapon is they found it to be more effective than tasers. They found tasers to be only 50% effective at the time they were looking at it, which was earlier than this. I think it was like 5-10 years ago. Has there been any comparison between the two, any studies done comparing the safety and effectiveness of the taser versus the weapon you have there?
Comparing apples to oranges. One's an electric current and one's an impact weapon. One is designed to disrupt the bodily functions, and one is designed to create blunt trauma, basically.
Okay. Thank you. And I imagine if this resolution passes, we'll certainly be talking to you quite a bit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Officer.
Commissioner Davis.
In the demonstration that we saw, the person was advancing with a knife within 4 to 5 feet of an officer. And I was wondering, are the officers trained to use a taser or a baton in that situation, or are they trained to use lethal weapon when it's faced with lethal weapons like a knife and a gun?
At this stage of the game, we don't have tasers, so there's no training that's being done with tasers.
But the current training is?
Current training, their options would have been a knife-wielding subject is a level of deadly force. We're not trained to go a lesser level of force to a higher level of force. So in that situation, They could have used the taser, and if the taser didn't work, their only other option is lethal force, which would have probably been a firearm.
And how many times were people, do you know of any instances in departments where an officer's, a knife-wielding person is 4 to 5 feet from an officer and they use a taser instead of their deadly force?
I can't answer statistics like that because we don't deploy tasers in San Francisco.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, officer.
Commissioner, I'd like to add one component. The problem with this weapon is that the officers all are not going to be able to carry that in a patrol car. That weapon would have had to been driven out to that location, even if we were going to conceivably try to use it in that scenario, which we wouldn't have. One of the issues with that weapon is the minute that officer grabs that weapon, I now have to have another officer that guards him, because his gun now is to no use of him because his hands are full with this. So now he has to have a guarding officer standing by in case lethal force has to be used. So there are dynamics that somewhere down the road we can look at. But once this officer grabs that weapon, I have to have somebody standing next to him that would be the guarding officer in this case, correct?
That's absolutely correct. Our department policy is there has to be a lethal cover officer anytime a less lethal munition is deployed.
So it would apply to any scenario. If there's a taser or any other type of weapon that's used, there would be guarding.
There should be, if somebody's deploying their taser, there should be communication between the officers responding. That one officer, yes, would be a lethal cover officer. If it's a lethal situation, you don't want to have to, like in that situation, transition and think about that at that given time. There should be a game plan between the two officers responding, or multiple officers responding.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, officer. Commissioner De Jesus has a question for Mr. Dr. Russell.
That was at the end of the presentation, is that right?
Yes.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. When you wrap it up, then I have a question.